the way he started off against France was super impressive, and it's just the basics done really well.
Do you suffer at all from nerves?
I do definitely get nerves. I think I'd be a little bit worried if I wasn't nervous.
And then I look at who's on the bench, and this is, I think, where we're starting to get to that. We want 4 in each position.
I want to see him get it right defensively. On attack, he's fine. Okay, there's no issues with regards to him from an attacking point of view, in my opinion.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Congratulations first on the selection. Very exciting times indeed. And this is so anticipated here in this country. Can't wait for this on Sunday morning our time. Duplessis, for you to start with, starting at 7. Were you happy with the way that you performed at that role in Hamilton for a start?
Yeah, cheers, Martin. Another awesome opportunity, obviously, not just to play, but to represent everyone back home in the All Blacks brand. So they're extremely grateful and looking forward to Saturday. I felt like I definitely built into the role as the French series went on. I'm proud of the way I played in that third test under somewhat unique circumstances. So really unfortunate, obviously, that Lukey went down in the warm-up, but we always just talk about being ready for anything, and I guess that's a prime example of just that, is, primed to play 20, 30 minutes off the bench, but called upon for the whole game. So, proud of my performance and grateful for another opportunity in the 7 jersey.
Just on that, one further question to that, with Ardie coming from 7 to 8 and his ability to be able to play both those positions, is it as something that all of you who are selected at 7 expected to do? Is it a fluid situation? Are you expected maybe at some stages in the game to swap that, or are you absolutely dedicated to just playing that 7 role?
7 would definitely be my priority. With Ardie, his ability to run the ball is obviously second to none. So having him at 8, is a strength and suits our game. But for the most part, not a lot changes, defensively around the field, attackingly around the field. So apart from the lineouts, really, which I haven't seen a lot of lately, not much changes. But being able to be flexible and versatile and fill multiple roles is definitely something that we work hard to achieve. And if, I guess, like the last question, if I have to do that, then I'll be ready.
Cortez, one question for you then. A lot has been made of the atmosphere that you guys are going to face. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of black jerseys or Kiwi flags in that crowd. What is Razor and what are the coaches saying to you about that first 20 minutes of the game and how important that is to get our game on and maybe kind of quieten that crowd?
Obviously going into a hostile environment. They're very passionate people. So for us, it's probably about starting fast, and making sure we make it known, I guess, that we're here to play. So hopefully that'll get us off onto the right foot. And
Do you suffer at all from nerves? Are you one of those kind of guys, one of those kind of players? Does that atmosphere affect you in that way?
Not so much the atmosphere, but I do definitely get nerves. I think I'd be a little bit worried if I wasn't nervous. I think it's always good to have a bit of nerves heading into a game.
Martin Devlin.
The All Blacks have been named for the first test of 2 against Argentina. I love this before the game, being able to sit here, have a look at this side and nut our way through it just before Nigel Yalden joins us with his expert analysis on a quick run through the names. They're up there on the screen for you. De Groot, Taylor, Newell, Scott Barrett, Holland, Vai, Kirifi, Ardie. There's probably the biggest talking point in the loose forwards there. Ratima and Bowden. We always knew Bowden would come back from injury. Geordie and Proctor in the midfield. Rico, Sevu, Jordan. Well, that seems to be our best back 3. Selectors choosing Samasoni, Norris, Tossi on the bench. There's your reserve front row. Paddy T comes back in. Samasoni coming off for impact. Christie, the reserve halfback. And again, that's perhaps a talking point. Leonard Brown, of course, the tidy-up man. And Damien McKenzie, we know what he can do in broken play when the defence gets tired. Well, no one better to welcome onto the show than our old mate Nigel Yalden. He's the voice of New Zealand rugby and the All Blacks for many decades, a great colleague and a great friend, and also having been to Argentina, I think at least a couple of times, Nigel. You can correct me on that. Your initial thoughts, though, when you heard that, and my message to you as you're on the bus coming to work was that, look, it's a pretty predictable team apart from maybe those two areas that I've mentioned there.
Very solid, very consistent selections when you compare Test 1 and 2 of the French series, and you really can't throw the third game in Hamilton into it, but very solid lineups. It's the first choice in pretty much every position. I guess the only thing is people might go, as you've alluded to, well, do we want Ardie as an 8 or do we want him as a 7? I think the preference will be for Ardie going forward to be in that 7 jersey more often than not and allow Wallace Satiti, and in this case Tupavai, it might be Simon Parker in the future, to do a lot of the ball carrying, do a little bit more of the grunt work, and allow him to roam and utilise the wonderful skills that he has got as a ball carrier, but also maybe being a little bit wider, working out in the tram line, so to speak. But in terms of selection, you can't fold it. You've got to be respectful of Los Pumas because they are a very good side. They're the classic capable on their day, as the British and Irish Lions found out in Dublin earlier this year. So I think it's just good, solid, smart, consistent selections from Scott Robertson and his fellow groups.
Scott Barrett, let's talk about the two Barrett boys. Scott Barrett, July the 5th was the last time he played. Bowden, July the 12th. So when you just look at that in terms of days and weeks, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it is. It's significant. But again, that speaks to the trust that the selectors have in those two men. And in particular, I'd say the trust that Scott Robertson has in Scott Barrett.
Agreed.
Neither of them would have been sitting around idle. Now, Bowden has had a hand injury, which means he can still do a lot of the other physical stuff, maybe not so much contact, but again, they will be doing all of their reps. They would have been going into the gym. Scott Robertson made the joke about how Scott Barrett has been spending so much time on the bench press machine. Now, there are still ways that they can maintain their condition given the injuries that they have got. It is that element of contact. They would have absolutely worked those guys over. Everybody coming back, and it's Marty Williams and Wallace Satiti, I'm sure will be getting absolutely the same as they work their way to a return hopefully next week in the second text. Mm-hmm. But they would have got those contact reps into them to make sure that they are up to speed. And the other thing we've got to remember here, Marty, we're talking about two players that have been around the traps now for some time. Mm-hmm, they know what's coming.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not like they're going in blindly. So I think, whilst, yep, I get your point, you have got to show faith in these guys. They are professional rugby players. This is their job. The expectation is that there should be no rust, that they will come back and have an immediate impact for the side.
Just on that, before we move on, and this is where your expertise really comes into play here, because you have been on tour with the All Blacks many, many times, and you've been at these training sessions, and on the odd occasion, I remember that there was a coach who threw you a tackle bag and said, stand there, report a guy, and hold this thing. So when it comes to coming back from injury, these guys have to put in the same ferocious training effort, don't they? There is no gentle way of getting these guys back in. If they're not absorbing that contact, if they're not doing exactly what it is that you'd get in a game, that's the point I'm trying to make here.
Yes, the Thursday session was always the one when I was on tour. You would go and you would see some absolutely brutal collisions in what they call a game situation. Now, whether that is still the case under Scott Robertson, I suspect it still would be, because you do need that. And I've been lucky enough to watch one, funnily enough, which was in Argentina, which was brutal. It was actually more brutal than the test match on Saturday. That's how vicious the All Blacks were getting into each other. I remember watching, I think it was Brodie Retallick running into the reserve locks. One of them was Luke Romano, and just getting folded in half and getting up swinging. And it was that hellacious a contact. That is what they do simulate throughout the week, because, as Scott Robertson has said himself, it is a violent, collision-based sport up front at the moment. And so you cannot replicate that on game day if you are not replicating that during the week.
It's a great point to make. All right, and on that, I look at who we've lost from the front row, and that is obviously Tamati Williams and sorry, Tyrell Lomax just slipped my mind for a second there.
Yep.
We've got De Groot De Groot, Nail, Taylor and Newell. And I look at those names there and then I look at who's on the bench. And this is, I think, where we're starting to get to that. We want 4 in each position. We're starting to look really good there. I'm not so sure, okay, the gap between Taylor and Samisoni, as I've said, I think is as big as it is with Roygaard in the next number 9. But when you look at the depth, especially in the props, Nigel, we got 2 of our big boys, our best boys missing. And look at that, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Could be 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, we didn't skip a beat in the series, remembering that Tyrell Lomax played 50 minutes, and he played 30 minutes of that with a busted thumb, and we didn't see any of Tamaiti. Ethan de Groot, we knew if he was given an opportunity after whatever he did on that interview tour last year, ceded that top spot to Tamaiti Williams, that he's going to go out and perform, and he is rock solid. You could argue that New Zealand has 2 number ones.
There you go.
You can maybe get a little bit situational if you want, but what Tamaiti Williams has done, you've seen him grow into that top spot, and Ethan de Groot is absolutely champing at his heels. Now, in terms of tight head, Fletcher Newell has done the same. He was brilliant throughout the Crusaders finals run. We've spoken about this on this very podcast. And now he has taken that into his All Blacks career as well. So that gap has closed a lot between Tyrell, who I still believe is the top, and Fletcher, who is just continuing to grow. Then you got Basilio Tosi. My concern is maybe the drop down to who your number 4 is, and who is the number 4 on the tight head side of things. I think loose end, we've got a lot of great talent there. I think a guy like Xavier Numia was in good form, commentated him last week playing for Wellington. I thought he was excellent in all aspects. You've got a young fellow like Josh Fusitua coming through on that loose head side. So you could say, yep, we are probably 4 or 5 deep in that area. Okay. Tight head, just a little bit of a concern. Is it the likes of a George Dyer, next cab off the wreck from a tight head point of view? Which way are they going there? Bauer can obviously play both sides. Yeah. They've taken Sione Mapaleo, who primarily is tight head, but as we've said, can switch to either side too. So I think that's in terms of a specialist. Mapaleo has been taken, but it was mentioned that he was both sides. So I think it's quite interesting there. But yeah, rock solid. And the 4 deep is a fascinating one, especially given recent developments in first 5.
Nigel, in terms of the locks, and you were around when Brodie first came into the team, and some players just come in, they get their first start, they get their second start, they look as though they've been there a little while, and before you know it, they've played 30 or 40 consecutive tests. Is that Holland? Is that him?
Look, I mean, the way he started off against France was super impressive, and it's just the basics done really well. What have we heard over time from so many All Black coaches, Martin, when it comes to what they want to see from their All Blacks? They want to see the basic stuff done to an exceedingly high level. And that's what we saw from Fabian Holland. He just seemed to have such a clear understanding of what the requirements of an All Black overall is. Not just the overall requirements of what an All Black lock is. He just understood, or seemed to me to understand fully, this is what an All Black has to do. And I just thought that was the most impressive part. Then you throw into the fact that I don't think he missed a tackle until about the second half of the
played so many minutes. Yeah,
very good with regards to the line out. It's a couple of wee bobbles on the restart, but that's a bugbear of mine from an All Blacks point of view, that their exits aren't as clean or as high quality as what the best rugby teams in the world are. So that's one little thing that I've got a bit of a bugbear on. But look, you can't fault what he did in that French series. Now he gets to find out against a really good, solid Pumas pack, who bring back, I think it's 6 of the 8 that started against the Lions in the victory in Dublin. So this will be another stern test of Fabian from that point of view. And of course, when they come back from New Zealand, it's the sternest test of all.
Let's look at the loose forwards then. And, I've loved this whole week building up to this. I don't know if it's been a bigger build-up in my mind that, for a rugby championship and, to get this underway. So much preview. And the loose forwards have been a real talking point all week, haven't they? And I suppose most debate is going to be around where Ardie was going to sit. Was he going to sit at 7? Was he going to sit at 8? At the very start of this item on the podcast there, you see du Plessis obviously asking him a couple of questions about this. This is a massive opportunity for him. Now, whether or not we see this 3 versus the Springboks, we don't know, but it's for this particular test. Maybe it's for next weekend as well. How do you see those roles being defined on the field? Because if it was Ardie at 7 and it was Lakai, or we'd had Jacobson available or Satiti available, well, then there's some swapping combinations and it gets fluid during the game. And that's a question that a lot of us at the press conference were putting to du Plessis as well. How does he see his role? Because he's an out and out number 7. There is no 7 to 8 to him, is there? So it's a different kind of way of approaching this loose forward trio.
Yeah, but what you've got to take into account is how intelligent Ardie is as a rugby player. And I think we overlook that a lot because he's an insanely talented physical specimen of a rugby player that I don't think his intelligence gets nearly enough credit. The ability to be able to coexist. I mean, this is a guy that formed a loose forward combination with Sam Cane. And that Sam an out-and-out 7 as well. And so Ardie's an out-and-out 7 too, but he's also got the ability to play 8. He will understand what his defined role is. And as I say, I think it's more ball carrying. It's the direct element of it. They know that they've got to do that. But, du Plessis won't shirk a ball carry. He'll carry into contact quite nicely. He's a great link player, as is Ardie Savea. So I think they've played enough rugby together as well in those roles for the Hurricanes to be able to have that translate into the All Blacks. And I think we saw it particularly in the second half of the third test against France. First half, I think France were really good.
Yeah, they were,
in terms of dominating and controlling.
First 20, the second half, we wrestled back.
In the second half, you saw Ardie, du Plessis starting to get over the ball, and they were tripping over each other. They knew. There was one point there where I thought Ardie was lurking, and you can kind of see him hold back. And du Plessis got over the ball and forced a turnover. That's the understanding. And that's something that I think will help. They know what the defined roles are. Scott Robertson defines them very, very clearly. But I think Ardie's intelligence is so often overlooked. And that's the reason why he can bounce. Remember, this is a guy that's played 6, 7, and 8 for the All Blacks and done so at an elite level.
4, 5, and 6 are those numbers solid on the back now, barring injury. That is Scott Barrett, Holland, and Tupu Vai now cement at 6. Is that what you see?
No, I don't. And I don't just because of the effusiveness of the praise of Simon Parker and the fact that it was pretty clear he would have been in the mix for France had he not been injured in that quarterfinal for the Chiefs against the Blues. So no, when I look at Simon Parker, a legit flanker, I know Tupou can play it and play it very well, but Tupou's primary position is lock. Scott Robertson has spoken about how he wants guys to be able to play 2 positions. I still think that when Simon Parker gets up to speed, metre 96, just under 120 kgs, athletic, and it was the intelligence component when Scott Robertson spoke about Simon Parker that really sort of caught my eye. Spoke about the angles that he runs, and you go back and watch some old footage of him playing for the Chiefs this year. He does run some gorgeous lines in those channels just either side of a ruck and maul situation. So I don't know, but what I do know is it's a great discussion and a great problem to have because if Simon Parker can come in and be impactful, you've got some serious size. And as we know, it is starting to become a bit of a size game.
Yeah, for sure.
This Pumas pack that they've named, big, solid human beings. Pablo Matera is not small. He's playing as their open side. Marcus Kremer is massive.
Yeah.
And he's their blind side. And that's not, going away from the likes of Molina, who's a massive lock forward as well. This is a big pack. This is a big stern test. There's a size game at play in world rugby.
Yeah.
Scott Robertson has recognised that, and he is trying to arm the All Blacks in a similar fashion.
Cortez was also, as you saw at this very start of the podcast, was put up this morning alongside Duplessis, and you listened to him as well. I asked him about the nerves because, look, there's a lot of responsibility on that young man's shoulders now, and this, Roygard is the number 1, number 9. We all know that. So just in terms, before we move quickly into the backline, his combination with Beauden Barrett, what are you expecting him? Is it the same instructions as you say about Holland? It's just doing the most fundamental things that your role asks and doing them really, really well. In an All Black jersey, we don't expect you to make mistakes. We expect those kicks to be absolutely accurate. We expect you to be fast. We expect you to make the right decisions. One thing I'd like to see from him, perhaps if it opens up, is maybe a little bit more blindside and a little bit more use of that and using his feet as well, looking up, heads up, and actually taking those opportunities because he's got some really good explosive speed. But again, your thoughts on what you think the instructions are to that young man?
Core roles to begin with, because he was off in the third test. The delivery wasn't as accurate as what it has been in the past. The kicking game was okay. Now, again, part of that was because the French were really up in the All Blacks' grill, and I think he didn't have the greatest platform in the first half, and for a little bit of the second half to really work from. I think he would have just been disappointed with his delivery and some of those basics. But it's the same thing. They know what the plans are. They know what the exits are. He understands how he's got to read. He knows when they're trying to exit from certain points, they're trying to get 15 metres in from either touch. They're looking to create a corridor. His kicking's got to be coming down. The box kicks, the high kicks have got to be coming down pretty much just on halfway, making sure they're contestable, giving the outside backs an opportunity to go up, get the ball, either win it clean or knock it back. So he understands all of that. And it's the heads-up stuff that I think you're referring to, and that's where Cam Roygard is so good. He's eliminating some of the errors, Cam, where he goes and you're sitting at home going, dude, why'd you turn it? There was no hold there. What were you thinking? I think Cortez is a little bit the same. He knows when to go. It's having that confidence to be able to do so, to read and react in those particular situations. So I think Cortez would have been a little disappointed with his performance in Hamilton. This is a wonderful opportunity to just put right, first of all, the basics, and then if those little opportunities arrive, back yourself, have the confidence, make your decision. And to have a crack.
Midfield, I like this as well, in that we haven't seen the best of Billy Proctor and we haven't seen the best of this combination, but what they're saying is very, very obvious here, isn't it? That we are backing this guy and we want him in that position, and we are going to continue to select him in that position. And so now he's got to actually lift his game now. So he's had those 3 tests. He's had, a good start. This is another level again, playing against Argentina. But we really need to see some cohesion and also just him playing at his best here. That's all I want from him. I just want to see the smarts that we've seen. Yeah, we've seen it on occasion during that French series. And by that I was talking about, I can't remember, maybe it was the second or third test where he turned around and did that pass, Nigel, which set up the try. Just, again, that eyes up stuff that he's got, his ability to actually look for the opportunities more than Rico seems to have been able to do, and actually put his other players in space. And so, again, I don't want anything spectacular from him. I just want him to play at his best.
I want to see him get it right defensively. On attack, he's fine. Okay, there's no issues with regards to him from an attacking point of view, in my opinion. What was one of the big things that came out of the French series for me is how centre is a defence-first position. And it's something that I knew, and for whatever reason, I kind of overlooked. Maybe I got a little bit enamored as well with how good Billy had been on attack for the Hot Hurricanes. When they got on that role, when he came back, he was so good. Centre in a test match rugby team, in my opinion, has got to be selected on defence first. And so for me, all of those things on attack, he and Geordie have got them. He's got those connections. He's very good in that space. It's the defensive decisions that he's got to be slightly better at. He had one real clanger in the first test against France.
Yeah.
He was so much better on the second test. There was a really lovely situation where they've got a shot on the coverage and they're looking at the back line, and it's Geordie and it's Billy, and you see Billy's just looking. He's looking, he's scanning. And just as the play starts to trigger, just as they cut to the scrum, you just see Billy lock in. It's like he's read this, he's recognised what the play is, It's just outside the 22, 15, and they come away left. It's a little pop ball for the winger coming in off the left-hand side. He got the ball and a face full of Billy Proctor at exactly the same time. And I was like, that's excellent in terms of recognition of the play, recognition of the triggers, getting yourself in the spot to make a really good defensive read. So it is all there. He's just got to keep elevating it. The Pumas backline run really nice angles. So again, there is going to be a little bit of pressure on the midfield connection of 12, 13 and the outside, be it left or right wing, whichever way the Pumas are attacking. But I saw Billy make really nice steps. I actually would have liked to have seen a roll out in the third test just to keep going. Now, obviously, they didn't do that. They got Anton Leonard-Brown there. So I think he's got to keep developing that because, Marty, I'm not sure he is our best defensive centre. I think he's probably the best overall package, but I am starting to lean back into that your person who wears 13 has to be your best defensive option first and foremost.
All right, couple to go. Obviously, the back three seem to be our first choice back three now, don't they? I mean, we've got injuries, but with these guys fit, Sevu, Rico, and Jordan, every test these guys are going to start. It seems to be at the moment. So, who wins this rugby championship and why?
South Africa start the favourite and deservedly so. I believe the All Blacks have got a really good opportunity, but they've got to walk away with 2 wins out of Argentina. You can't split them. You come back 1 of 1, I don't know if that's going to be good enough. You go over there and you get 2 wins on the road, that gives you enough confidence to come back because you know the Springboks are targeting Eden Park big time. They want to add to this massive legacy. They're back-to-back Rugby World Cup champions. And they would love nothing more than to come to Eden Park and break that incredible record that All Blacks have at that venue, having not been beaten there since that try by that French team all those many years ago. Sure, there's a draw thrown in there against the Lions, but that would mean the world to South Africa. It would be the world to Rassie Erasmus, who is a guy who understands the history of the game as well as any coach in world rugby at the moment. You've got to get 2. So you can't be thinking about the box. You've got to get 2 in Argentina. That gives you the opportunity because I think if the All Blacks get South Africa at Eden Park, and I've got no doubt they will roll down, even though they haven't had the greatest record in Wellington against Springboks recently. You could have it wrapped up with 4 really, really good games. And then you host Australia, a nice little bonus, just to make sure you get it. So for me, the Springboks are the favourite. They are the best side in the world, whether you like their style of play or not, whether you like all the stuff that goes around them or not. Tough. Suck it up. Boks are the best in the world. You just have to watch them the way they play it. You don't have to like it, but you can't deny it. But I think the All Blacks have got a great chance in these first 2 weeks to put a bit of pressure on South Africa when they come, because you know all the chat's going to come out of the box camp as well. So massive 2 weeks coming up for the All Blacks to give themselves the best chance of winning the Rugby Championship.
Finally, thank you so much, as always, mate. I love chatting to you, know that. So finally, you've been to Argentina, as I said right at the start, and just a couple of, just give people a little clue as to, because we hear about this, we hear about the atmosphere, the crowd, how big it is, how loud it is, just the difference of being in that particular country. They're not speaking English, okay, you're speaking a different language, the food's different, you have to, put some grappling hooks on to climb over that stake, all of that kind of stuff. Being in the bubble, and you've been around all of that, so you've had a little, well, not a little insight, you've had a much better insight than most, actually being there on the ground, watching and absorbing all of this, and then being in the stadiums for these test matches.
They are phenomenally passionate. If you want to think of every cliche you want to throw at some kind of a Latin American
temperament,
sort of mentality,
yeah,
all that sort of, they're great. They're bouncing. That's how I would describe them. If their team's on a roll, they are bouncing. They're popping. The stands are just going like this non-stop. There's noise, chatter, it is constant. They support their team vocally, they support their team physically, they support their team emotionally, and you feel it coming out of the stands. They absolutely love it. Majority may not be the most technically savvy, So it's not like they're overly stoked, even if it's an obvious call against their team. Referee's still going to cop it, okay? But they are majestically passionate about it, but they can be quelled. And I've been lucky enough to be at a couple of games where that crowd has been absolutely humming, and the All Blacks have just socked it to them inside of 30 minutes, and they're dead.
Right.
So that is the key, is that, yep, the passion will be there. Yep, the noise will be there. The energy will be there. The All Blacks need to take a little page out of Brad Thorne's old playbook. Brad Thorne used to say, I don't care who they're cheering for. If there's energy in that stadium, I'm going to use it, whether it's for me or against me. And that's what I'm sure the All Blacks will look to do in Cordoba. There will be massive amounts of energy, enough to run probably the city of Cordoba for a year and a half and then some. They've got to utilise that energy. They've got to get some early strikes in against Los Pumas, because if they're allowed to hang in, that crowd can make a difference. Strike hard, strike early, strike clean, get the advantage, control the game.
This is the DSPN